Kinguin for Charity number 3. This is the spring edition. This is day 2 that you are watching right now with myself, that's Admirable, and Mr. Monk himself. We have seen some crazy matches today, and we're moving on to match number 7, which is going to be RDU versus Neirea. These two guys are very well respected among the higher players in the community. Not only for their results at past tournaments, but also for the threat they have in any tournament that these guys enter. Two fantastic players. RDU had such a decorated resume in 2014, and Neirea, he's put up some good tournament performances, but doesn't have like a major win under his belt yet. And that's something he's definitely hunting for. But he was the number 2 player heading into stage 2 of BlizzCon in the EU region, so certainly showing a lot of skill for himself and his consistency and his dedication at the game.
Yeah, Neirea is a player we've recently, or maybe not recently since we picked him up around November, but we picked him up because we knew that he was so talented and so skilled that it was just a matter of time before he won a tournament. Now, in the last Kinguin for Charity tournament, he got top 4, so he might have to top that performance from the last tournament by getting at least the top 2, by getting at least in the finals. Now, I have to mention that because we are now in the lower half of the bracket and the bottom 4 right now, bottom 4 matches, all the players who got to this stage 3-0 their opponents. So we might actually see the curse of 3-0 again. You might see one of these players getting off a clean 3-0 and clean 3-0 victory.
It's definitely possible. Our Hunter, Mage, Rogue is going to be the lineup for RDU, and he's going to be facing off against Neirea with Warrior, Rogue, and Druid. So Mage is going to be for RDU, and Warrior is going to be for Neirea. And just off, straight away, this is a matchup that I initially thought was really bad for Warrior. Just kind of given the way that the cards line up. And I think with a hand that like RDU has, I think it's still pretty bad for Warrior. But overall, if you don't see Snowchugger and Piloted Treader being drawn, these minions are pretty much the most resilient ones and the ones that have the most shutout potential early in the game as far as the Mage is concerned against Warrior. How do you think this matchup is going to end up lining up generally and with these specific draws afterwards?
Generally, Warrior can deal fairly well with a lot of the early mech mage threats, like a lot of the 2/3s that mech mage tends to have, the Snow Chuggers and the mech warpers. But the Snow Chuggers, not only the Snow Chuggers, but Snow Chuggers and the Neurotrons can really deal effectively with a lot of weapons that the Warrior can bring to the field as well. So those are definitely going to have a lot of effect. With these particular hands, Deathbite might be slightly shut out if we don't see a silence come onto the field immediately. And Neirea might have some trouble because he won't have a turn 3 or turn 4 play that's very effective against the board.
Yeah. I really like playing Armorsmith here, but I actually wouldn't mind seeing something like Iron Begal. He didn't see a 1-drop, so I think he can anticipate RDU not having one. And if he chose the Iron Begal, the Snow Chugger, he would have gotten that effect out of the way in terms of freezing, so his weapons wouldn't be shut off. And at the same time, he also wouldn't have to worry about it really getting pinged and then development facing behind that. Because if RDU is going to choose to use the ping, it means he's not actually putting anything on the board. We saw he drew Cogmaster. That would end up helping things out. But I also really like the Armorsmith because of the way it's going to go in conjunction with Cruel Taskmaster. So if this Cruel Taskmaster hits the board here, he's going to be able to actually put this into the Snow Chugger, and he's kind of getting the exact same effect he had last turn. So really 2 opportunities to make this happen. Once this goes into the Snow Chugger, we still have a point of damage that's pretty much committed to being put into this Armorsmith to keep it from going crazy.
Yeah, not only, this is such a great start from Neirea. He draws a lot of his low curve minions. Not only does he clear the Snow Chugger leading up to a Death Spite for next turn, he's able to silence the Mad Scientist, so he guarantees no mirror image will come out in the following turn. So just a couple of more minions coming down on the board, but we're almost definitely going to be seeing a Death Spite right now coming down to the board as well. Deathspite will be able to clear a lot of the minions on RDU's side of the board, and it'll even threaten any minions that RDU can play in the next turn. Deathspite in this matchup is usually a 2-for-1 if it doesn't get shut out by something like the Neutron or the Snow Chugger. And I think this is one of the circumstances where that exactly will happen.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you too. I think it's a really important thing to note is how much Deathspite ends up getting in this matchup.
Yeah, Deathspite will almost certainly come down on the Piloted Treader, I would say. There's just so many good trades from Neirea's side of the board as well. His 2-1 and his 2-2 can trade into his opponent's 3-2 and 2-2. But also, if he actually kills the piloted shredder with the death spite, then the cog master will actually be able to will be actually traded into the resulting 1-2 cog master. But actually, unfortunately, I think we have Neirea might have some internet issues because his camera is frozen. We actually saw him log offline.
Yeah, disconnect this early. I don't know exactly what the official rules for this are. His hand is looking pretty good though. Something else to note too is the minions that could be summoned off this piloted shredder, and what that would really mean for the trades that resulted. Something like Explosive Sheep or Doomsayer came out. It's just, that is like worst case scenario for RDU, I think. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a disconnect. So we're going to find out exactly how we're going to be moving forward for this one. Monk and I unfortunately do not make decisions when it comes to disconnects. So we're just the messengers for this one. So don't shoot us.
Yeah, don't shoot the messengers, indeed. Yeah, it's really unfortunate for Neirea, because it looks like he was in like an absurdly favorable position at this point. But at the worst case scenario, he's going to lose this game, or he might just have to force a regame. We're not really sure right now. We're just checking how the players are doing, if Neirea is back online right now.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and wait for that to happen. That was a complete disconnect from Neirea, so we're going to have to kind of wait and see what ends up happening. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think that Neirea is actually a pretty significant favorite coming into that, because not only did he have Deathbite, but he had a strong follow-up with the Sludge Belcher afterwards. And then he also had mechanics to make sure that his life is topped off with the shield block, and that's not accounting for any of the draws he had, which when Warrior stabilizes its board position, pretty much all of its draws are really scary. It's when Warrior is fighting from behind that its draws do not have the most impact possible. When it's kind of going toe-to-toe and it's not taking 1 billion damage in the process of doing it, it's one of the scariest decks that's out there.
Yeah, and not only with the Sludge Belcher and with the Death Spite, the other issue for RDU is that he was not really able to activate the Goblin Blast Mage in the coming turns, because he really wasn't probably not going to have any mechs on the field after Death Spite came down. So Goblin Blast Mage, basically essentially what you want on turns 4 and 5 to get back to the board, one of the strongest mech mage cards, but RDU probably wasn't going to be able to utilize it in the upcoming turns.
I want to take this time to remind everyone out there that we're going to have a different start time from tomorrow. We started a little bit earlier today. It was 1600 CETs when we started. Tomorrow we're actually starting at 1700 CET. And for those of you who are out there who are too lazy to Google what time zone that means for you, I'll give you a couple more. That's 1600 GMT, that's 1100 EST, and 800 PST. So,
or just 8 PST.
Yeah. Is it 8 or is it 800? I don't really know how it works.
Just 8 PST, I would
just
say.
8 PST?
Yeah, 8 a.m. PST.
Yeah, see, I don't want to have to specify between PM and 8. I like military time. Military time is very efficient. It feels like it's about as close to metric time as you can get. Like, I don't like measuring things in inches and ounces. You know, this weird archaic system that the United States chooses to use. I like centimeters, and I like kilowatts and all that good stuff.
Admiral, I'm so disappointed in you. I thought you were a real Texan, a real American.
You know, I really am, but there's just something to be said about efficiency. You know, my entire life has been dedicated to basically playing games and dismantling them and figuring out how things work the best. And if the game I'm playing is life and the element I have in front of me is metric system, or this archaic, terrible system that doesn't really have a reasonable standard of measure other than we made these up and this is what they are, I want to go to the one that makes sense that everyone can understand.
We're actually getting some admin ruling right now. It's actually going to be a 1-0 lead for RDU right now. Neirea, unfortunately, he disconnected from the game, so he actually loses the first game, even though he was, I would argue, in a fairly favorable position.
Yeah, that's not to say that RDU was out of it, but that's just the way it has to be with rules in these online tournaments. Disconnects usually have to result in losses just to keep things clean and keep things moving forward. That's the nature of the beast. So RDU Mech Mage gonna be locked for this one. This is the Conquest format for those of you just joining us, or for those of you who don't quite pay enough attention to catch it every single time that Monk and I say it, and have been tuning in for a while. Conquest is the format where when you win with a deck, that deck becomes locked. It's not like last year's standing where when you lose with a deck, it becomes locked. So to win a match, you actually have to win with every deck that you've submitted in a best of 5. So these are 3 decks, best of 5. 1 game must be one with each one. The losing player doesn't have their deck locked, and they can use any of their unlocked decks in a new game at any time they wish.
So Neirea will still be able to use his Warrior, but RDU will not actually be able to use his Mech Mage. He'll still have his remaining 2 decks to face off against the Warrior. And let's actually talk a bit about RDU's lineup. In the previous set, we actually mentioned that RDU was one of the rare players who wasn't bringing the Druid to the tournament, and it might be because he wanted to temper his lineup against aggro decks. But now that he's matching up against Neirea's Warrior, he might be regretting the decision to not bring Druid into his lineup.
I definitely think it's something he's going to take into consideration, but I think when you look at a field overall, you don't really expect Warrior to be played too much, given how much Druid is actually finding its way through a lot of these tournament plays. I mean, Druid was it was the second most popular deck that was in this tournament. You compiled the stats earlier.
Druid is actually the most popular deck in the tournament.
Oh, it's most.
Well, it's 12 out of 16 players are bringing Druid. The second most popular deck, of course, is going to be Rogue, with 11 players playing Rogue.
Yeah, and then 7 are playing Mage behind that. There's actually only 4 people that brought Warrior, and I'm not going to say I'm surprised that 4 people brought Warrior, but I would consider it sort of the lower tier of power decks right now. So if you're looking to exploit certain kinds of players, I think Warrior's a really good way to do that. And against someone like RDU, who's going to go to the next level and think on that sort of thing, this is the kind of player that you're trying to punish, is one of these fantastic guys who's always going the extra mile to try to get an edge in his lineup. So I think Warrior does function really well versus what RDU's doing, but overall I think Warrior's kind of a risky choice.
Yeah, we're getting word that Neirea is going to just figure out some things right now, and Neirea will actually be back in 5 minutes. And we'll continue the match in 5 minutes, but so I guess let's try to fill some more time, right, Admirable?
That's generally the way it goes. So, Rogue and Hunter is left. Do you think Neirea is just going to queue up Warrior again here and hope to get some good matchups? Because you've been saying, and a lot of people have been saying this, they think Warrior is actually really good against Rogue. I still am going to disagree with it, and I may be wrong on this one, and I've definitely been wrong before, so it's not going to be a surprise to anybody. But I feel like Rogue still puts up a good argument against Warrior. I wouldn't consider it like, oh, well, Warrior versus Rogue, that's definitely the matchup I want.
I think it's a lot about how confident Neirea is with all his decks. Now, Druid is always a good deck that everyone is confident with, but the remaining decks in Neirea's lineup, Warrior and Rogue, they're both decks that Neirea has done very well with recently on ladder. With both of the decks, he's actually gotten top 5 on the EU ladder in the past few weeks. So definitely decks that he's confident with no matter what his opponent is playing.
There's definitely a certain respect to be said for that. You know, if you're playing a deck and you're winning a lot with it, you should keep playing that deck, even if it's not considered one of the strongest strategies. We saw Life Coach bring Handlock to this tournament, and Handlock for the last couple of weeks and on top of the ladder, it's been all but extinct. Most every single Warlock player has kind of adapted to a Demon Lock style, and it's kind of, tipping the hat to, or the fedora, if you will, to Big Game Hunter being in so many different decks to make sure that they can check Dr. Boom to keep it from getting out of control. So when you're seeing that, you really don't want to be in a position where you're facing Mountain Giant into potential Big Game Hunters very often, and sometimes even 2 Big Game Hunters.
Yes. Well, speaking of big game, we've actually raised $1,863 for Child's Play just today, between today and yesterday alone. So we're getting awfully close to our goal of $2,000 that I set for the day, and we've got 2 matches left. So I'm sure. Whoa! Just as I said, the prize has increased to $1,888. So almost just $100 away from that goal.
Just barely anything left. You guys have been doing an awesome job. We want to take this time to thank you all as well for your contributions. It means a lot to the kids out there that are going to be benefiting from this. It is a benefit for Child's Play. For those of you just joining us, Child's Play is an organization that helps provide toys and games for children in hospitals who don't otherwise have access to them. If you want to learn more about Child's Play, you can visit childsplaycharity.org, and we strongly encourage you to make contributions, which you can do so following links in the chat or links below the stream.
Yeah, we also want to give a shout out to Kinguin, who's the organization that's hosting this tournament right now. Thanks, Kinguin. You've brought us some great entertainment, and of course, you can thank them by visiting some of the links below on the screen here and checking out all the sales on games they've had over the past few weeks.
Yeah, good stuff. What a great lineup this has been so far. The favorite match of the day still for me is Savitz versus Tice. I think that's actually a match that I'm going to remember for as long as I'm playing Hearthstone.
Yeah, Savitz versus Kalento, obviously a very great match just because of the level of players that was in that match. And also, I hate to talk about another Team Liquid player again, but Neirea and StriveCro was another match that I was really excited about and had some really close games. It was kind of the opposite of the Tice versus Savitz match, where StriveCro was in such a huge lead with the Mech Mage versus Druid game, but then he just couldn't draw into the finishers, and Neirea was actually able to close it out after so many turns of StriveCro drawing dead.
Yeah, Savitz was able to draw it, and again, StriveCro had so many draws for so many turns that he could have picked up. Like if he had gotten a Fireball or a Frostbolt, he had, again, it was like 4 or 5 turns to draw 1 of 3 outs, I think, that were left, which is a pretty high percentage chance when you take that many draws into account. He just wasn't able to find one. Savitz was able to find one, so we've seen both sides of that matchup where it's been really close, and Druid came back and it's been really close, and then Mage was able to close it out. So another big treat for that tournament. Or sorry, for this tournament that we've seen so far.
All right, so I think the games are pretty close to beginnings. Neirea is still having some problems with his webcam, so even though the games might start fairly soon, we won't be seeing Neirea's pretty face.
That's a shame. I like Neirea. I met him at DreamHack Winter. That was we discussed a very long, in-depth strategy turn over the difference between playing a weapon or playing a minion. I actually remembered what it was now. And we were talking about the range of different things that happens and how a game pans out based on like this 1 extra point of damage. I was getting down and what it meant for the entire game. It was like a 30-minute discussion, quite literally, from like a turn 2 play, I think it was. I was just like, my head's exploding.
Yeah. Unfortunately, again, this game is played on the internet, so if the internet has problems, then there's going to be a few delays. We're very sorry about that, but hopefully the games will start very soon.
You know, a wise man once told me that technology was the vehicle of esports, and that sometimes that vehicle stalls.
Yes, I was kind of hinting towards that, but you hit the nail right on the right on the head there.
Gosh, I love Tasteless. He's one of my favorite people.
Yeah, he actually hit Legend recently.
Yeah, he's been playing a lot of Hearthstone. When he first started playing Hearthstone, I have to admit, he was just absolutely terrible. I had no idea what he was doing. Like, if you watched him put together a combination of cards, he'd be like, okay, and I have no idea what to do. I'm like, all right, well, let's start going through some options and figure this out. And it was really ugly at first, but he's gotten a lot better. And sort of the preparation for that is really not so much of his ability to navigate through Hearthstone, but more so just the practice he's put in and his understanding of matchups and how they function.
Yeah, I think he's actually asked a lot for a lot of help, and it just shows you how much he wants to become Legend. He's put in a lot of work, and he's finally reached it, so congrats to him. But on another note, the games are about to begin.
Yeah, buddy. So 1-0 lead for RDU right now, and Neirea is going to queue up Warrior again, and RDU is going to go with Hunter straight away, and I believe this is more of a mid-range Hunter version, if I recall correctly. RDU was the one that had a copy of Snake Trap, right?
I'm not really sure, but
gosh, I know we saw Snake Trap this tournament, and I can't remember who played it. I'm just gonna write it down next time.
I definitely remember Snake Trap in the tournament, but it was by a player who lost. I remember a rogue player played against the Snake Trap, and he just kept going for face.
Yeah, I do remember that. Gosh, I want to know, because I know RDU loves to play Snake Trap too. Like, actually, last season he gave me a Hunter list that had 1 Snake Trap, and that was it. It actually didn't even have any other traps. And he was like, the only way I'm losing is when I draw this stupid trap, so I'm just going to cut all of them except for this 1 Snake Trap that I want. And I played this, I was like, this is actually kind of brilliant. He fit in a Dr. Boom, he fit in an extra Savannah High main than he had in the original list. It fought really well.
See, RDU is actually running, it looks to me that he's running a mid-range Hunter, but he's also running a Glaive Zuka, and I think that's a testament to how much he really values the early board control early on, because the Glaive Zuka is not a card that has a lot of value typically, but it's very good at fighting for that early game control. Not only does it buff up the web sitters, but it also kind of acts like a slightly weaker Fiery War Axe.
Yeah, when you're fighting in these aggressive board positions, like say he's playing a mirror match here, when he has access to Glaive Zuka, he's able to trade up a little bit better and then also buy himself some tempo with Glaive Zuka. So he's able to trade a little bit of life to make sure that he can nab that extra edge. And that's one of those plans I think I like to go with. Whirlwind not too great in this matchup, so Neirea is just going to use it to clear out the Haunted Creeper. Make sure he can stem as much damage as he possibly can. RDU's got Animal Companion though, and this could spell trouble. That one stings. You know, I think Raynad's right. I think it is always tougher.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen it in majority of times in this tournament. It has been Huffer.
Yep.
Neirea has a really good answer. He doesn't even want to use the Axe Charger. Instead, he's going to develop his board a bit more and throw down 2 Cruel Taskmasters.
Yeah, I like this, even though RDU has 2 charges on the Glaive Zuka. It's just because he doesn't want to take extra damage if he doesn't have to. And this is not only not taking extra damage, but it's buying him life total by having these Glaive Zukas have to attack these Cruel Taskmasters. Not only that, but he gets to play this Sludge Belcher behind it too, so he gets to actually protect his second Cruel Taskmaster.
Yeah, RDU is thinking, why did you do that? I just get 2 free Cruel Taskmasters, but this is a perfect play right now. Getting the... Oh, wow, he doesn't actually even use the Cruel Taskmaster to kill off the Web Spinner.
Yeah, I think when he does that, he's taking into account any Knife Juggler shenanigans that might be able to happen. And maybe being able to pick off like Haunted Creeper or something.
I think it's also a lot about that he also had another Fire War Axe in his hand as well.
Yeah, I think that definitely has a lot to do with it. The other thing too is if you paid attention to RDU's list in prior days, he knows that he's running a card like Sludge Belcher. So if this happens, it means that he gets to do this and keep... oh, never mind. I thought he was going to keep on to his 2/1 Cruel Taskmaster, but he's just going to save life on his Sludge Belcher instead.
Yeah.
Look at RDU's. Imagine if like no Web Spinner had been played in this one, and it's just Angry Chicken, Savannah Highmane, Ragnaros, Freezing Trap. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't...
not the best hand, I would say.
Savannah Highmane, though, this is one of those really troublesome cards. Wow, Dr. Boom gets drawn. This hand is getting really big for RDU all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly what Warrior doesn't want to deal with. Dr. Boom and Savannah Highmane on board. I mean, there is a Brawl in hand, mind you, and a BGH, but still, it's going to be a lot of trouble for Neirea to deal with all of this.
Yeah, this is a lot of stuff to deal with. So Execute's going to come out. Buy him a little bit of time. Big Game Hunter. Bam. See ya. And just actually going for face here. And I really like this aggression because when he applies this much pressure, it really sends a message. So RDU has to see this and go, you know what? I actually have to deal with this board position right away, or I'm going to end up taking too much damage. I'm potentially going to die. So 4 damage Boombot goes to face, but Neirea still at a very high life total. Ragnaros. This Ragnaros is actually going to do some major work.
Yeah, either it's going to kill a Shield Maiden, which is really good, or it's going to do 8 to face, which is also really good.
I think he's going to trade. I think he wants to keep his Ragnaros protected basically as long as he can. If any more removal gets invested into this Ragnaros, he's got another Savannah Highmane to follow this. Wow, that Shield Slam's doing nothing right now. Oh my gosh, he just has to attack.
This feels so horrible.
I don't think... I may have never seen this happen before, ever. But you know what, RDU, he's got to check this Grommash, which he has the perfect card to do it with.
Oh man, yeah, Freezing Trap is pretty awesome. Anything like an Owl or even a Hunter's Mark would be also good draws as well. He just has to make sure that Grom just doesn't get another 10 damage, and he's flying pretty well. The Grom still, it might tank another 8 damage for the Ragnaros though, and that's probably what Neirea is hoping for in this scenario.
RDU's going to overcommit to the board to try to stabilize himself from Grommash as much as he can, and this is going to be a bit of a risk now. Oh my gosh. Oh, the hit goes to face. This Brawl could just outright win him the game. I think with what's happened this game, having a 20% chance to almost win is a pretty darn good deal.
You can't win immediately though, because there is of course the Freezing Trap on the field.
Right.
Yeah. So does he go for this Brawl? Does he hope that maybe the Grom wins, or does he just activate the Freezing Trap right now?
Does he hope it's Explosive Trap and attack the chicken and just run the Grom in the face? That might be a better chance to win, honestly.
No, I think he definitely knows that it's either freezing or Snake Trap, and is he testing for that now? I'm not sure if that's the correct play.
I think he is going to test for it.
I think Neirea is actually logged offline.
Yeah, it's going to be another disconnect, it looks like. I just saw it as soon as you did.
And I think RDU saw it as well, because he tilted his head back in kind of frustration.
Yeah, so connectivity issues definitely being a problem here. But, you know, this game was sort of the opposite of the last one, where at this point he's at such a big disadvantage. given the gigantic plays that RDU has had with this kind of, frankly, strange Hunter build. He's got Ragnaros, 2 Savannah Highmanes, and a Dr. Boom. It's almost like it's just aimed at Warrior.
Yeah, and RDU just pretty much drew all of his threats that he needed. He even used his Glaive Zuka very well to kill not only a Cruel Taskmaster, but the slime that came out of the Sludge Belcher. So props to RDU for building a really good deck against Warrior.
Yeah, so it's another disconnect, but I would dare say that game was going in RDU's favor almost every single time. So he's going to take a 2-0 lead now. And then we're going to have to wait for Neirea to get back online, but gosh, I mean, what's going on with this Hunter build? Why is he playing all these gigantic cards? And it's like, if he wants to aim at Warrior, why wouldn't he just play Druid?
Yeah, that's fair. I guess like the Hunter deck also aims against Druids, which are going to be fairly popular in this metagame. As we can see, 12 out of 16 players have brought Druid. So I guess if you bring a deck that's good against Warrior and good against Druid, you're going to be sitting pretty right there.
That's a good point that you make, actually, is how this Hunter deck is going to fare versus Druids. I'm curious how that match would actually pan out, because I think when he has Ragnaros in his deck, at sometimes it does open a vulnerability to something like Big Game Hunter, but Big Game Hunter is a card that Druids will often just play to get a 4-power minion on the board to help contest what's happening. Now, if the Druid player knows what it is going into it, I don't think there's a chance he's playing Big Game Hunter to do that. But then when that happens, he does get punished sometimes for not contesting the board with a 4-power minion. So it's actually kind of like a really good plan from him to have a deck like this that can apply so much pressure to Warrior and at the same time have what looks like to me a favorable matchup against Druid. I'm not sure how favorable, though. That's really where it's in question for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if RDU does advances from this scenario, I think we're going to see a lot of Hunter versus Druid matchups, because of course everyone is bringing Druid, RDU is bringing Hunter, and it's just a matter of time before these two decks clash.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. That's a matchup I really want to see, because that's a pretty unconventional Hunter deck. I can't remember the last time I actually saw Ragnaros in a build like this, except for when I've seen RDU play it.
Yeah, Neirea has gotten back online right now, but he's still having some connectivity issues.
Yeah, just making sure we get connected so he can play again. Just unfortunate. I mean, 2 DCs is just, what can you do? It's going to be what happens sometimes. So yeah, first game. Gosh, I really wanted to see that pan out too.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, Neirea looked in a fatal position, but RDU still could have drawn a lot of cards. Mech Mage is Mech Mage, so he still could have come back into it, definitely. It was by no means just a closed and shut case.
Yeah, I think that Mech Mage is always one of those decks that, like, it's never out of the game completely. Like, unless it's actually just getting killed, you can always just kind of play Archmage Antonidas and have a couple of cogs to just get 2 fireballs and then turn the game back around. I've seen Archmage Antonidas like win games where their opponent had like 30 plus life and it's able to grind out the game simply because their opponent doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, Archmage Antonidas just kind of turns the Mech Mage around from the very start. Mech Mage, for most of the deck, is just putting on pressure on your opponent, whereas Archmage Antonidas is typically a card found in Freeze Mages, but in the Mech Mage deck, it just gives the Mech Mage just the extra boost, the extra fireballs to get past that last hurdle.
Yeah, that's really the big spot. Mech Mage really reminds me of Druid, sort of in that matter, where it's just got efficient minions that scale the whole way up and then has like some burst combo at the end between like fireballs and frostbolts to get the job done afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still waiting on some admin decisions about what to do next, but so enough about RDU versus Neirea. If we go on to the next match, what is the next match that we're hoping for right now?
Next match that's on the block is Lothar versus Sho, and we saw Lothar 3-0 6-0, and we saw Sho 3-0 Firebat. And again, like you said, the lower half of the bracket has been the story of the 3-0s. Everyone's gotten 3-0'd so far in that bracket.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it looking to the course where RDU versus Neirea might end up in a 3-0, and it's certainly heading in that direction. Lothar versus Sho, I think even though both players 3-0'd their opponents, I feel like Sho played slightly better against his particular opponent. Again, as the rogue player, when Sho was playing rogue, he knew when to just go for face, when to all in, and I think he made overall somewhat of the better decisions.
I think Sho actually played that match fantastic. He put a lot of pressure on his opponents and was showing a very aggressive tendency that he typically doesn't end up having against his opponent. It's like, when I've watched Sho play, he plays a very controlling style typically. And now, granted, I haven't been watching him, very recently, but in this tournament, he really, really stepped it up from the last time that I'd seen, which is applying a lot of pressure, making sure you're putting your opponents to the test, and giving them the tough decisions to make.
Yeah, definitely. So, again, let's talk about Child's Play. Child's Play is an organization that we're doing this charity event for. It's all about giving children who are in hospitals the toys and games that they need to get through their traumatic experiences in the hospital. When you're a kid, you definitely don't want to be at the hospital. You're probably in there for a procedure that probably isn't the most comfortable in the world. So you're just making these kids' life a little bit better. Yeah, we had a donation goal that was set. Monk challenged you guys to get to the $2,000 mark, and we're so close to that. It was, last time we checked, it was basically about $100 away from it. If we had 10% of the people watching donate $1, you would just crush that goal outright. So I want to see those donations get hit. I made a small contribution yesterday, and I'll probably be making another one today just because I'm feeling saucy. But if you guys want to make your contributions, you can do so. You can follow links in the chat that are being posted, as well as links below the stream. The other thing that's going to be happening is tomorrow we're going to be starting at a different time. We started today at 1600 CET, but tomorrow's going to be a little bit later. It's going to be 1700 CET. And for those of you who are too lazy to Google time zones, that's 1600 GMT, 1100 EST, and 8 AM PST. So lots of games have been crazy today. Man, moving on to the top four. I can't believe this event is coming. I don't want this to end. I always want to watch these people play. Oh yeah, these are of course some of the best players in the world, and it's kind of like you just throw the best players of anything into an arena, and they just fight out matches for you. It's basically a dream experience.
Are you not entertained? It's just Gladiator.
Yeah, Gladiator reference.
Via cards. That's what I want. I don't want blood. I want pain and suffering mentally. That's what I want. I want everyone to go, no! If only I would have gone for the RNG win, I could have won. If only I would have tried to get lucky. Sometimes you want to just try to get lucky. That's what I do occasionally. But when Ragnaros isn't the best play, I typically just play it anyway, just because I want to see what he does. Oh yeah, so you're that kind of player. Like sometimes, sometimes might be an asshole thing to do, but like sometimes if I have lethal on board or if I have lethal in my hand, I sometimes just want to play out the game just to see how it ends. Even without killing my opponent, try to fatigue out my opponent basically. Ragfall actually had one of those moments too. Like the only way that he could have even possibly lived was by Ragnaros hitting an 8-to-1 shot, and he actually got his 8-to-1 shot, and he like flipped out while he was on stream for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, 8-to-1s don't happen very often. It's pretty rare. All right, so the third game will actually happen right now. All right, we're heading into game 3. It's going to be Rogue versus Warrior. Third time's the charm for this one, and. See, Artio's got Antique Healbot in his hand, so this is, again, sort of tipping his hat towards the aggressive sides, understanding he might need a little bit extra to get the job done. Oh my gosh, and an ugly opener for Neirea. 24 mana worth of cards in hand in his starting hand. The Armor Smith makes it slightly better. And the bright point about this is that he does have the Death Spite, so at least he will be able to challenge a lot of the minions that RDU will bring in the first couple of turns. Yeah, Shield Sling gets picked up. Those are two pretty important ones, I'd say, for now. Really hoping to fade something like Backstab SI, I would say. And that's just exactly what RDU happens to have. You could also play Blood Mage in Backstab, but I think that getting the 3-3 on the board is probably a little bit better. You're not sure if your opponent does have the weapons, and in case he doesn't, then this is just an overall great situation for you. Yep. I actually, given that he has 2 7-drops, I'd like to see him armor up and shield sim here, I think, instead of playing the weapon. Unless it's that weapon.
or
Maybe
he
that
just
would
draws
pull
Fire
it
War
back.
Axe.
Gosh, I don't know. I still think I like Armor Up and Shield Slam. Because then if your opponent plays another 3 health minion, you can armor up and attack that. But then this also takes away the possibility of attacking and then shield slamming the next minion. So I can see definitely arguments on both sides.
Neirea is actually sort of lucky here that his opponent's 4-drop is a Pilot Shredder and not a Bio Teacher. Now the Fire War Axe can just kill off this Pilot Shredder, whereas he would have had a bit more difficulty if his opponent played a Piloted, or if he played a Bio Teacher instead.
Yep. So there's going to be Wild Pyromancer. And Armor Up Shield Slam is going to be the play. Holding on to this coin. This coin's so important right now because it's got these 2 7-drops in his hand.
Oh, easy Lothab will come down.
Yeah, this is a bit of a problem. Neirea has no clean way to kill this. This is going to be at least 5 extra damage.
He can go for the Death Spite, and the thing is he can't even coin the Cruel Taskmaster. So
yeah.
This might just be going to face right here. No, he actually decides to save it.
Big Game Hunter would have been actually a really good draw there.
Yeah, not something many people think about, but if you Cruel Taskmaster plus Big Game Hunter, that's a combo.
That's a bingo.
Yeah, unfortunately, like a fairly dead turn for RDU right now.
Look at that white and gold hero power too. Or is it blue and black?
Oh man, did you just go there?
Just really ticking everyone off. You know, I actually would have liked to see Coin Baron get in here.
Oh, that's fair, I think.
Yeah.
It forces your opponent to deal with it. Like, you're not too afraid like of the fact that Baron Geddon and Dr. Boom don't have too much synergy if you play them back to back, because either your opponent deals with Baron Geddon or he doesn't, and you're extremely happy anyway.
I think the Dr. Boom's great synergy. You get 2 Boombot Death Rattles off of your Baron Geddon, that's great.
So it's like summon a 7/5 plus a Fireball.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fair enough, fair enough.
He does have a coin in his hand. Still there with that. So, oh, there's that Big Game Hunter. But he doesn't have the Cruel Taskmaster anymore. Dr. Boom's just going to come down. I don't think it's a real doctor.
No, he doesn't have the MD degree.
Yeah. It's like the sulfur pills he prescribes too. I'm not taking those. Azure Drake can play to start out with. What is he looking for here? What do you think RDU wanted to draw in that exact one?
He probably wanted to draw something like Backstab, because that would be the only clean, efficient way to deal with this Dr. Boom. Now he has to... Oh man, does he have to like put his face into it?
I don't like taking 7 damage, but I guess he doesn't really have much of a choice.
I guess there we go. And that's just the power of Dr. Boom. You can't really sap it. Like, if anything else came down, like a Ragnaros or an Alexstrasza, then RDU could have afforded to sap that, but Dr. Boom is just not one that can go back into Nerea's hand, because that'll just summon more Boombots.
You know what? I think this is...
Oh my god.
I think this is a coin Alexstrasza turn. That's what I think. Oh gosh, come on. Neirea's playing so safe. You know, I gotta commend him for this though. He feels like he's got close to a stranglehold on the board control, so he doesn't really need to make really aggressive maneuvers to invest into that. If RDU has to continuously invest damage into what's happening on the board, eventually it means that Neirea is just going to be out of reach of him. And then once he's out of reach and he expends all of his weapon damage killing minions, and RDU's basically down to nothing, the Alexstrasza can heal himself up like back to a 15 point, and then really put him out of reach of everything, because RDU again would have had to have invested so much damage into minions, and I think that's his game plan.
Yeah, I want to point out that this Dr. Boom Boombot is actually really annoying. There's no actual way that RDU can deal with it very efficiently. Rogue typically has a lot of things that do 1 damage, including his dagger, but right now RDU will have to actually use a Blade Flurry on this not very threatening board, and perhaps poke the Shield Maiden with his dagger instead.
Yep. I think he's happy that Boombot only hit for 1 too.
Oh, definitely.
You know, if he had Alexstrasza this turn, that'd have been a pretty major problem. Oh geez, that is also a very major problem for RDU right now.
Yeah, if you just go for Faith and play the Ragnaros, how much damage is that really? That's about 75% of RDU's remaining health, and it'll bring him down to 4 HP.
I think you go for this.
Yeah, I definitely like this play.
Let's rip it.
Let's go. Uh-oh.
He's considering the possibilities too. Oh, and here he goes. Oh my gosh, RDU's gonna fall down to 4 here, and he's got a Ragnaros on board that he's gonna have to deal with. He's got 2 saps to make sure that it's going to go back to hand, but not a ton of action afterwards. You know, if RDU decides to not sap this Ragnaros and actually just wants to make a bunch of tokens and go from there, Iron Beak Owl can end up being lethal.
Oh, yeah. I don't think Neirea is going to be one to miss that Iron Beak Owl onto Ragnaros play, as we've seen from some other players in other tournaments. No. Oh, man.
Don't tell me this is another disconnect.
Well...
that's awkward.
That's awkward indeed.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. That's another disconnect. What if Ragnaros just won the game anyway? Like, RDU just didn't have sap and he just won a game while he was disconnected.
that would have probably been the most embarrassing loss ever, I'd have to say.
I think it'd kind of be justice for the other 2 disconnects, though.
It's like my opponent wasn't even playing and I still lost. How does that happen? But yeah, this might be actually turned into a fairly long game, even though Neirea isn't in this game, just because of how much health Neirea has left and the fact that RDU doesn't have any minions on board to do anything.
Yeah, so RDU figure out exactly what the protocol is here. Third disconnect, just so unfortunate.
So many options.
It looks like he's writing a message down.
Is he gonna DDoSing dirty charity events?
I think his sign said stop DDoSing charity events.
Okay, yeah. I think that was it.
Gosh, just tough stuff. Yeah.
Well, there's the 3-0.
Well, yeah, there's a 3-0. It's a kind of not the most graceful match that we've seen in a while, but this is just sort of the nature of internet tournaments. That sometimes you're gonna have to deal with this sort of stuff. So,
yep.
Are you going to be advancing in this one basically by default? I think one of these games he had pretty locked up, and that game was looking like it was going to be really close. Then, of course, in the Mage game, he still had an argument for being able to win. But either way, moving on, RDU is going to be advancing 3-0. He's in the top 4 now. Neirea, unfortunately, going to have to be eliminated from this tournament on the back of some disappointments. But what can you do?
Yeah, what can you do indeed? And that actually is our 7th match of the day that we've casted. I can't believe it's been so long, but it's been so enjoyable with you, casting with you, Admirable, the entire time.
Shucks, Monk. You're going to ask me out next. Lothar versus Show is going to be our last match of the day, and then top 4 is going to be taking place tomorrow. So before we go, again, I'm going to remind you guys, this is a charity event to benefit Child's Play. If you want to learn more about Child's Play, you can visit childsplaycharity.org, and we strongly encourage you to make contributions. We are so close to the donation goal that Monk has set for you guys, a challenge, if you will, to get to $2,000 today. You can follow links in the chat to make your donations or links below the stream. So go ahead and check that out. When we come back, we have one final match with Lothar versus Show. Get your predictions in now for who you think is going to win this one, because these are 2 very, what I would consider, opposite ends of the spectrums in styles of play. Show has been really turning up the aggression in this tournament, and Lothar has been traditionally sort of a player that likes to respond to what his opponents are doing and try to find the best lines of play to figure out the puzzle and win the game from there. So you're not going to want to miss that one. Don't go anywhere. Get your predictions in. To use the hashtag Kinguin for charity. Tweet at KinguinNet, at Liquid_Monk, and at That's Admirable. We're coming back with the last match of the day. Don't go anywhere.